All right, your paramedic test is going to have 20 pilot questions. These questions do not count against you if you miss them. There's 150 questions total. I would put it on the screen, but the TV in both rooms keeps on cutting me off. I guess it's the weekend and they're cutting costs. So we're going to talk about 10 to 14% of the test is going to be EMS operations, which is why we are discussing this boring chapter. I would not watch this in your free time if this is somehow entertaining to you. Watch all the other medical ones. This, I don't even know. All right, so in 1487 was the first use of the ambulance. This occurred at the siege of Malaga. No documented medical care provided. They just simply transported. So there was no medical care. They just took bodies. In the 1800s, Baron Dominique Jean-Lai, chief physician of Napoleon's army, is credited with establishing the first pre-hospital system for triaging and transporting patients. In 1865, this was the first civilian ambulance used in Cincinnati, Ohio. 1869, first ambulance service started at Bellevue Hospital in New York City. In the first year alone, ambulances responded to more than 1,800 calls to help throughout the city. In 1899, this operated an automobile-type ambulance that was used at the Michael Reese Hospital in Chicago, Illinois. A major shift, kind of want to hold it. Major shift. 1926, the Phoenix Fire Department started service similar to present-day EMS. In 1928, Julian Stanley Wise launched the first rescue squad in Roanoke, Virginia. 1940s, EMS was turned over to the police departments due to lack of personnel. No minimum standard of training was set. Care was not always welcomed. The 20th century of modern technology. During World War I and World War II, systems of field treatment and transport, battlefield corps, they were continuously evolved, and EMS made major strides following World War II. Military medical researchers recognized bringing hospital-type services closer to the field and gave patients a better chance of survival. Helicopters, they were the first used in 1951 during the Korean War. Brought patients to the Mobile Army Surgical Hospitals, or MASH units. I've always seen the TV show on older channels, but I never knew what it stood for. So Mobile Army Surgical Hospitals. And you know what, let's just bring this down. Let's just bring this down just a little bit. And then let's angle it up a little bit. That's the wrong way. Let's go. Helicopters, 1951 Korean War. Yes, brought patients to Mobile Army MASH units, and it helped thousands survive. In 1956, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation was developed by doctors Elon and Safar. The portable defibrillator was developed by Frank Pantridge in 1959. Late 1950s, early 1960s. Focus moved back to bringing the hospital to the patient. Mobile intensive care units, MICUs, were developed, staffed specifically by trained physicians. Shortages of physicians, training of non-physicians, which is what we were, what we are. We act in accordance to doctors. We are not our own doctors. 1965, the National Academy of Sciences and National Research Council released the White Paper, also known as Accidental Death and Disability, the neglected disease of the modern society. Findings included a lack of uniform laws and standards, ambulances and equipment poor quality or non-existent, lack of communication between EMS and hospitals, lack of personnel training. Hospitals were staffed only part-time, and higher number of people died in motor vehicle accidents than in Vietnam. Findings outlined 10 critical points to establish a functioning system. This led to the National Highway and Safety Act. This was enhanced in 1966 after created U.S. Department of Transportation, U.S. DOT. The U.S. DOT provided authority and finances and development of life support systems. 1968, the task force of the Committee of EMS created basic training standards and principal 911 systems to provide universal access to emergency services. It is hot in here. Refers to Table 1 for critical points. This is Table 1. Just kidding. It's not. It's a picture. First, paramedic program standard in ambulance design and equipment. This was in 1969, and the NREMT began. In 1969, Dr. Eugene Nagel of Miami, Florida, this is when paramedics started, created the True Paramedic Program, trained firefighters in advanced emergency skills, developed telemetry systems. So firefighters transmitted patients' electrocardiograms to physicians. Firefighters received medical instructions from physicians, often called the father of paramedicine. Standards for ambulance design and equipment were published this year. More helicopters became available in 1970s, and the National Registry of Emergency Medical Technicians began. In 1971, Emergency Care and Transportation of Sick and Injured was published. First emergency medical technician textbook, published by the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, AAOS. The AAOS began training EMTs through a national workshop. Emergency. The first American program focused on EMS began an 8-year run. The lead characters in the series became household names. 1973, Emergency Medical Technician Services Systems Act was passed, defined in the 15 required components of the EMS system, referred in Table 1. Emphasis on regional development, trauma care, and provided structure and uniformity to the EMS system that came out of pioneering programs in Miami, Seattle, Pittsburgh, all large populations, and Illinois. Trauma System by Dr. David Boy. 1974, the federal report disclosed fewer than half of the ambulance personnel completed training. Guidelines published for the development and implementation of the EMS system. In 1975, the American Medical Association recognized emergency medicine as its own branch with medicine. Many cities signed up for individual advanced EMS training. In 1977, the first national standard curriculum was based on Nancy Caroline's work. That is the book that I'm reading right now. 1980s through 1990s, the number of trained personnel grew significantly. The National Highway of Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, was developed 10 system elements to help sustain the EMS system. Federal funding and staff for EMS was reduced. Responsibility for EMS was transferred to the states. Funding, this hasn't fallen away yet. That's amazing. I love that. Okay, we're doing pretty good. Funding continued to be a major roadblock for states and local governments. Major supportive initiatives. EMS for Children, EMSC program was implemented in 1985. Amendments to the Public Safety Officers Benefit Act in 1986. Families of firefighters, members of a rescue squad, and members of an ambulance crew are now compensated if the provider of care is killed in the line of duty. Trauma systems started making headway in 1990s. Some of the secondary programs received federal funding. Some advances are held back due to a lack of funding. In the 21st century, numerous initiatives are appearing. One example is EMS Compass, measuring performance in EMS, help identifying the best care practices to establish performance benchmarks through the country, and EMS training is used in many other areas of health rather than strictly in an ambulance. Hospital emergency departments use paramedics, healthcare clinics, physicians' offices. Community paramedicine is healthcare models in which the experienced paramedics receive advanced training to provide additional services and making continuing strides. These additional capabilities are not being developed to replace any current healthcare modalities, but rather utilize the capabilities of the paramedics in areas not served previously. How many slides is this? All right, 75. This isn't that long of a chat. We got this. Licensure, and certification and registration. Registration means that the records of the paramedic's education, state or local licensure and recertification will be held a recognized board of registration. I believe it's the NREMT. Depending on your state's location, you may be licensed or registered. Once you complete your initial paramedics education, depending on your state, you will be eligible to take your state certification. Some states require you to test and establish licensure through a registry such as the NREMT. Certification examination is used to ensure that health care and care providers have the same basic level of knowledge and skill. Once you pass the requirement of examinations, your state and NREMT will give you a certificate or license. Licensure is how states control who is allowed to practice a healthcare provider. So depending on the state, may be known as licensure or certification or credentialing. This text uses the term licensure. Performing functions as paramedic before licensure is unlawful. Must be directly supervised by a paramedic program internship preceptor as part of your training program. Holding a license show that you complete initial education, just got that, shows that you met requirements to achieve the license, does not mean that you cannot perform as a paramedic without supervision of the service's physician medical director. State and local protocol. So you can't do these IV clinics where you're going and getting like infused Z-packs, banana bags, and all these vitamins and minerals and stuff that wealthy people tend to get after working out. You can do it, but you will probably lose your license because it's unlawful unless there's a doctor that works for that company. Most likely there's not. State and local national agencies require paramedics receive medical discretion. Discretion can be online or offline. If the state requires you to pass the NREMT cognitive psychomotor examinations to become licensed, you will have to pass a written exam with numerous practical skills. To be eligible, you must be successfully complete initial paramedic education through the accredited program. Your school is required to verify the course completion before you can sit for the exam. The National Registry tests the paramedic psychomotor competency portfolio is a comprehensive collection of skills and scenarios. The Committee on Accreditation of Educational Programs for EMS Professionals, COAMPS, is the only accrediting body for paramedic programs to date. Their mission is to continuously improve the quality of EMS education through accreditation and recognition services. The number of paramedic training facilities will grow significantly over the next few years because change in the national scope of practice, the need to expand professional image of EMS, desire to establish consistent guidelines for paramedicine. Reciprocity addresses training that occurred in one place to another place where the paramedic wants to practice. So each state has different licensing or certification requirements and procedures. Reciprocity is when the certification is granted to a provider from one state or agency to another. So investigate the licensure process beforehand if you are planning to relocate to another state or country. Many countries will not accept the training provided by the United States, and reciprocity will not be automatically accepted. Many states recognize the National Registry certification as part of the reciprocity process. For reciprocity, most states require that you hold a current state licensure, are in good standing, have a National Registry certification, undergo the state's written and practical evaluation, provide education transcript, continuing education hours, provide information for criminal background check, and pay a fee to process your reciprocity because they want their money. Traditional EMS employment. Once you become licensed, you will have a variety of different career options available to you. Some possibilities include the following: fire-based EMS, what up, fire departments. Most are paid and operated by municipal governments. Some locations operate fully with non-paid volunteers, while others use providers who are paid per call. They do not receive compensation until a call comes in. Interesting. So they want calls. EMS could have a separate management system and operate independently from the fire side. Managers are often still to report to a main chief or director. We have a rescue chief. We have a lot of chiefs. We have special ops chief, rescue chief, I think there's fire chief, several chiefs. Fire and EMS personnel may respond together to major incidents when additional manpower is required. You may have dual role working with fire and EMS providers. That's why we respond Delta with a rescue and a fire engine, sometimes a truck company. Fire departments can better justify keeping staffed in-house departments if they add EMS. Third service EMS municipalities, single and shared. Depending on the financial capabilities, some municipalities establish and operate their own ambulance services independent of other public safety entities. So we have AMR, they pick up contracts. City of Tampa, they have TransCare contracts. I don't think anyone has AmeriCare. The independent ambulance agencies may also offer their services under contract to municipalities who can't afford their own services. Some states allow multiple municipalities to share costs with being an equal owner. Reduce costs to all, allowing them to cover a cost of the providing paramedic service. Usually citizens need to request response. They may not be set automatically. The fire service would also have to request EMS response unless a pre-arranged process exists. Private EMS agencies, profit and nonprofit, operate similarly to third service EMS agencies. Contract services to municipalities, and the contract can include anything from managing the existing service to providing full service communities operations that vary greatly. There's a lot in this slide. Some of the following standards: 24-hour shift practicers, while others have a status system management structure. Hospital-based EMS services can vary greatly. I feel like they're all 7 to 7, pretty much 12-hour shifts. In most cases, hospital-based services tend to offer their inter-facility type transports as well as aeromedical services, which are offered in larger remote locations. We have that at Tampa General, and they fly to other hospitals too. Some offer 911 response and paramedic intercept services. Paramedics are required to assist with patient care in areas of the hospital and their downtime. Let's blow this up. That's too much. Hybrid or other. Many large companies such as oil drilling platforms and factories with hundreds or thousands of employees have their own medical response and care facilities. I might look into that. I bet there's money there. In some areas, paramedics work in conjunction with primary care providers, physician assistants, nurse practitioners. There are numerous companies who provide business and hire personnel to fill medical positions at specific locations such as national parks, amusement parks, and other venues. I've seen them at Disney, Blizzard Beach or water park, and then I've also seen one at Discovery Cove when I was a lifeguard there. The EMS system, this is what we are looking for. The EMS system, we're gonna take a break. I need a fan.